He thought he married the love of his life, until her mother moved in and seduced him into a secret that would shatter everything. But when his wife caught them in the act, she didn't scream, she collapsed. Now the guilt isn't the only thing haunting him. Before we continue, if you're new here or haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to keep creating more amazing content like this. Let's continue. 2 weeks. That's all Jake and Sarah had been married. Fresh from their Hawaiian honeymoon, they were still floating on cloud nine in their cozy apartment in downtown Denver. The chemistry between them was undeniable. They finished each other's sentences, shared pizza straight from the box, and couldn't keep their hands off each other. Their neighbors in the thin-walled building had become unwitting witnesses to their passion. Every morning brought soft sounds through the walls, and every night, the old bed frame would creak in rhythms that spoke of pure love. If happiness had a face, it belonged to Jake and Sarah Miller. Jake was everything a woman could want. 6'2", strong jawline, well-groomed beard, and that calm confidence that made heads turn wherever he went. But what Sarah loved most wasn't visible to the world. He was blessed, generously blessed, and their honeymoon had been an endless celebration of their intimacy. In her excitement, Sarah had shared everything with the one person she trusted most, her mother. "Mom, you won't believe it," she had giggled during a late-night phone call. "This man is going to be the death of me. I've never experienced anything like this. He's just... wow. God really knew what he was doing." Linda had chuckled on the other end, her voice warm with maternal wisdom. "Honey, enjoy it. You deserve all the happiness in the world." But what Sarah didn't know was that her mother had absorbed every word, painted every image in her mind, and slowly, something inappropriate began to simmer. Linda arrived the following weekend with 2 suitcases and a story about needing rest. She claimed her doctor had recommended a change of scenery for her anxiety. Sarah welcomed her with open arms, and Jake greeted her warmly, calling her Mom like he always had. At 52, Linda looked younger than her years. Her skin glowed even without makeup, her figure still curved in all the right places, and she moved with the grace of a woman who knew her power. The visit was supposed to be temporary, a week, maybe 2, but the doctor's appointment never happened. Instead, she settled into their guest room like she belonged there, offering to help with housework, cooking dinner every other night, humming old Motown classics as she moved through the apartment. Jake remained respectful, but over time he noticed how her hugs lingered a beat too long, how her eyes followed him when she thought no one was watching. She would laugh at his jokes, even when they weren't funny, and wore yoga pants that seemed designed to catch his attention. He brushed it off as his imagination running wild, but everything changed the day she kissed him in the parking garage. He had just returned from his job at the marketing firm, tired blazer slung over his shoulder, tie loosened. She appeared with that radiant smile and pulled him into what he thought would be a normal hug. Then she kissed him, right on the lips. Not a motherly peck. This was deep, wet, and slow. He jerked back, stunned. "Mom, what was that?" She looked into his eyes, unfazed. "Nothing, just happy to see you." He didn't tell Sarah. How could he? How do you tell your wife that her mother kissed you? So he buried it, but it stayed with him, eating away at his peace. At night, Linda would slip from her room and creep to their bedroom door. She'd press her ear against the wood, listening to her daughter's moans, hearing Jake's deep groans, and she'd close her eyes, imagining herself in Sarah's place. She'd return to her room and lie awake, one hand beneath her nightgown, the other pressed to her lips, lost in fantasies that should have horrified her. Then came the night that changed everything. A heated argument had erupted between Jake and Sarah over something trivial, whose turn it was to do dishes, or some equally stupid domestic dispute. Words flew, voices rose. Jake stormed out of the bedroom, shirtless and frustrated. Sarah slammed the door and locked it behind him, refusing to let him back in. He threw himself on the couch, angry, rubbing his temples. Linda entered the living room wearing a silk negligee, purple, low-cut, leaving little to imagination. She didn't ask about the fight. Instead, she sat beside him and placed a gentle hand on his chest. "Don't let this marriage stress you out," she whispered. He didn't respond. She leaned in and kissed him again, He pushed her back immediately. "Mom, stop." Just then, Sarah opened the bedroom door, heard his raised voice, and stormed out. "Don't you ever raise your voice at my mother again, ever." She grabbed Linda's hand and marched her back into the bedroom, slamming the door. Jake sat there, chest heaving, lost in a swirl of anger, confusion, and something darker, temptation. Days passed, then weeks. Sarah changed completely. The sweet, passionate woman became distant. Short answers, no cuddles, no intimacy. Most nights, Jake slept on the couch. Linda started bringing him blankets, making his favorite comfort foods. Her presence was everywhere, soothing, nurturing, tempting. One night, while Sarah slept behind her locked door, Linda approached him on the couch. "You want me," she said simply. He froze. "You didn't tell her what I did. Why?" He stammered. I didn't want to cause problems." She smiled. "My daughter and I, we're one. You've had her. Now you can have me too." She kissed him again, slower this time. He didn't push her away fast enough. She took his hand and placed it on her curves. "Isn't this good enough for you?" His body betrayed him. Blood rushed south. He was aroused, and when she slipped off her robe and pulled him close, he didn't resist. The couch became their secret playground. Their movements were slow, quiet. They climaxed in whispers. She covered him with a blanket, kissed his forehead, and disappeared into the darkness. And that's how it began. Jake woke the next morning in a haze. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, illuminating the quiet living room. He sat up slowly, the blanket falling off his chest. Her perfume still clung to the fabric, subtle, intoxicating. He tried to piece together the night before, but the memory hit him like a freight train. He had slept with his wife's mother. His hands shook as he stood. He couldn't even look at the couch. Shame wrapped around his chest like barbed wire. He found the bedroom door unlocked for the first time in weeks. Sarah was still asleep, curled under the comforter like nothing had happened. He slipped into the bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. "You're a piece of shit," he whispered to his reflection. But part of him, a dark, buried part, wasn't sorry. Not completely. Everything felt normal on the surface that day. Sarah got ready for her job at the accounting firm, barely speaking. She dressed in silence, gave him a dry peck on the cheek, and left. Linda was cheerful. Too cheerful. She wore a fitted dress that hugged every curve, her makeup subtle but effective. Her eyes danced with mischief as she served him Eggs Benedict. She didn't mention the night before, but her fingers grazed his as she handed him coffee. The tension was thick and unspoken. Every day after that, things spiraled deeper. Whenever Sarah went to work, Linda stayed behind. She'd clean, cook, and wait. Around noon, she would knock softly on the home office door where Jake now worked remotely. Sometimes he ignored her, other times he let her in. It became routine. She knew exactly how to touch him, how to whisper in his ear, how to press her soft body against his. Her confidence made resistance impossible. She made him feel desired, like a man again. Each time he touched her, guilt would crash in too late. He told himself he'd stop, that this had to end. But temptation is a slow, wicked flame. It doesn't burn fast, it seduces. And Linda had become fire wrapped in a woman's skin. One Wednesday afternoon, she returned from Whole Foods, tight yoga top and leggings that left little to imagination. He was in the kitchen getting sparkling water when she came up behind him, arms slipping around his waist. "We need to talk," he said, trying to step away. "Talk while you hold me," she purred. "No, this is wrong. We need to stop, now. Sarah is your daughter, my wife." Linda stepped in front of him, cupping his face in her manicured hands. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel the guilt, too? But I can't help it, Jake. You've awakened something in me that I thought was dead." He stepped back. "You should have left after the first week." She tilted her head, studying him. "But you didn't want me to." He opened his mouth to argue, but closed it again, because somewhere deep down she was right. That night, Sarah came home later than usual. She looked exhausted, her movements slow. Jake tried to talk to her, to touch her, but she pulled away. "Let's not pretend," she said quietly. "You haven't looked at me the same since our fight." "I'm still your husband," he said, searching her eyes. She nodded slowly. "Barely. And I'm still your wife. But it feels like we're strangers." The room fell silent. He reached out to hold her, but she turned and walked into the bedroom, locking the door once more. The next day, Sarah left for a client meeting in Colorado Springs. She'd be gone overnight. Linda found Jake working on his laptop in the living room. She approached slowly, wearing one of Sarah's oversized University of Colorado t-shirts that somehow still hugged her curves perfectly. She sat beside him, tucking her legs beneath her. "Jake," she said softly, "I know I've messed with your head, but I need you to be honest with me. Do you regret it?" He swallowed hard. "Every single day." She didn't flinch. "And yet you haven't stopped." He looked at her. "Why are you doing this to me?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's selfishness. Maybe I just want to feel like a woman again." Silence stretched between them. Then she kissed him. It wasn't desperate or needy. It was slow, sad, filled with longing. He kissed her back, and they melted into each other again, this time on the Persian rug under the morning light, like two people clinging to a secret that was destroying them. Days passed. The guilt stopped knocking so loudly. Linda packed his lunches now. She took coffee breaks with him in the home office. He sometimes told his colleagues he had appointments and came home early, knowing Sarah wouldn't return until evening. The strangest thing was Sarah herself. She didn't suspect. Or maybe she did, but buried it deep. Her mother was her rock. Her husband, her love. It didn't cross her mind that both could betray her in the same breath. Then came the twist neither of them saw coming. Before we continue, if you've made it this far and haven't subscribed yet, it's why not? We pour our heart into every video, and your one click means more than you know. Subscribe and share. It's the fuel that keeps us going. Let's continue. One Tuesday, Jake rushed into the apartment, shirt untucked, trying to beat the clock before Sarah's usual return. He found Linda waiting, wearing only a silk robe, her smile wide with anticipation. They didn't even make it to the couch this time. Right there in the hallway, hands everywhere, lips desperate with need. They didn't hear the door open. They didn't hear the footsteps, but they heard the gasp. Sarah stood frozen by the entrance, her laptop bag falling to the floor in slow motion. She saw everything. Her mother's legs wrapped around her husband, his pants around his ankles, their bodies tangled in ultimate betrayal. Jake shot up, stammering, "Sarah, it's not what it looks like." She collapsed to the floor. Her scream wasn't loud, it was broken, guttural, empty. Then her eyes rolled back. Jake shouted her name, rushing to her side. Linda backed away, hand pressed to her chest. The next thing they knew, their neighbor from across the hall had rushed in, then paramedics. Sarah was rushed to Denver General, unconscious, IV in her arm. As Jake stood beside her hospital bed, he finally grasped the full weight of what he'd done. The hospital room was quiet except for the beeping monitor. Sarah lay still, face pale, eyes closed, lips chapped. Jake sat beside her, elbows on knees, hands buried in his hair. His heart hammered erratically. He hadn't eaten since morning, hadn't slept all night. Linda hadn't come to the hospital. He didn't want her to. The doctor's words from earlier still echoed. She collapsed from psychological shock. She'll wake up eventually, but you need to be prepared. Whatever triggered this must have been severe. Severe didn't begin to describe it. Her mother, her husband, together, in their home, on a random weekday afternoon. It was unforgivable. He leaned close to whisper, "Sarah, I screwed up. I ruined everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. I swear I love you." No response, just the steady beeping. Days passed. Sarah finally opened her eyes. She didn't scream, didn't speak. She just stared blankly at the ceiling. The nurses said it was trauma-induced withdrawal. She would recover, but the pace depended on her emotional support system. But Jake wasn't that anymore. When she finally sat up to eat on her own, she looked him dead in the eye and spoke her first words since the collapse. "Don't come back home." He nodded. He didn't argue. He knew she was right. Back at the apartment, silence reigned. Linda was seated in the living room when he walked in. She looked like she hadn't slept either, eyes swollen, hair disheveled. "She's awake," he said coldly. Linda nodded, voice hoarse. "I heard." He sat far away from her. "You should never have come back." "This is still my daughter's home," she snapped softly, "and I still care about her." Jake looked at her, eyes bloodshot. "Then why did you destroy her?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. They sat there, enemies bound by shame. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept hearing Sarah's voice, soft and broken. "Don't come back home." His chest felt like it was caving in. He had destroyed the only real thing in his life. Linda knocked on his door around midnight. He didn't answer. She entered anyway. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "You should." "I know I was wrong," she whispered, tears pooling. "But I also know what I felt. I didn't plan to fall for you, Jake. It just happened." He turned to her sharply. "That's not love. That's obsession. You used your daughter's pain to fill your own loneliness, and I let you. We're both disgusting." She stepped back like he'd slapped her. "I said I'm leaving." Good. Morning came and she was gone. Just like that. No goodbye, no drama, just silence. She left behind traces, her perfume in the bathroom, earrings on the dresser, a scarf on the couch, ghosts of her presence scattered throughout the apartment. Jake didn't return to the hospital. He knew he wasn't wanted there. He texted Sarah daily, "I'm sorry. I love you. I'll never forgive myself." She never responded. 1 week passed, then 2. Then, on a rainy afternoon, Sarah came home. Not to stay, just to pack. Jake opened the door and froze. She looked stronger. Her face was still pale, but her eyes held fire. "I just want my documents, some clothes. Then I'll leave," she said, not meeting his gaze. He stepped aside wordlessly. She moved through the apartment like a stranger. No emotion, no pause. She packed with quiet efficiency. He followed from a distance, guilt trailing behind like a shadow. When she was almost done, she turned to him. "I need to ask, how long did it go on?" He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. She sighed. "That long." He shook his head. "It was wrong from the start. I tried to stop it, I did. I just—" "You enjoyed it," she interrupted. His silence was answer enough. She nodded, swallowing hard. "You broke me, Jake. Both of you. But I'll survive." Her voice cracked slightly, and that cut deeper than any scream could have. She turned to leave, dragging her suitcase behind her. At the door, she paused. "If there's any justice in this world, you'll carry this shame for the rest of your life." And then she was gone. Jake didn't cry. He didn't drink. He just sat on the couch, the same couch where everything started, and stared at the blank TV screen. Days turned to weeks. He went back to work, but the spark was gone. Colleagues noticed he looked thinner, quieter. He avoided calls from mutual friends. He stopped going to the gym. He didn't want to explain anything to anyone. One evening, returning home, there was a letter slipped under his door. No envelope, just folded paper. It was from Linda. "I know you hate me. I hate myself too. I left Colorado trying to rebuild far away from you and my daughter, but I can't sleep without saying this. I did love you. Maybe not the way I should have. Maybe not the way you deserved. But it was real to me. I hope one day you forgive yourself. I already forgave you. I just don't know if I'll ever forgive myself." He crumpled the letter and tossed it in the trash, because forgiveness felt impossible. Not yet. And Sarah was gone. Gone like their vows. Gone like the innocence they'd once shared. But life kept moving, and the consequences weren't finished with him yet. 3 months had passed. 3 long, cold, miserable months. Jake had become a ghost of himself, His life ran on autopilot. Work, home, sleep. No more laughter. No more music. No more love. The apartment felt haunted. Every corner reminded him of what he'd lost. Sarah's laughter echoing from the kitchen, her perfume lingering in the bedroom, the sound of her slippers on the hardwood floors. Sometimes, when the nights got too quiet, he imagined her voice calling his name. But it never was. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. Then one Saturday afternoon, as he sat on the balcony sipping cold coffee, he received a text that froze his blood. "We need to talk. Meet me at Garden Cafe on 16th Street, 4 p.m. Sarah." He stared at it for a full minute, unsure if it was real. He checked the number again. Yes, it was her. He didn't think twice. He showered, shaved, wore his cleanest shirt, and drove like a man chasing hope. When he arrived, she was already there, seated at a small table on the patio, sipping an iced latte. She looked stunning. No makeup, just her natural glow, hair in a fresh bob cut, wearing a soft blue blouse that moved gently in the breeze. He approached slowly, cautiously, like she might vanish if he moved too fast. She looked up and gave him a faint smile. "You look thinner." He sat down, eyes never leaving hers. "You look peaceful." "I've had time," she said, "to think, to cry, to breathe." He nodded. "I'm sorry doesn't feel like enough." "It never will be," she replied softly. "But that's not why I asked you here." She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. She placed it on the table and slid it toward him. He looked at it, confused. "What's this?" "Divorce papers," she said. "I'm not asking for anything. No property, no alimony, no court drama. Just a clean break. We were only married 3 months. It's easier this way. I've already signed. You just need to add yours." His heart plummeted. She continued, "You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. My own mother, Jake, my blood, my role model, and you, my love, my future. I lost you both in one moment. I regret it every day," he said, voice barely audible. "There's not a moment I don't wish I could go back." She nodded. "I believe you." They sat in silence for a while. People passed by. A child laughed nearby. Someone's phone rang at another table. But at theirs the air was still. She reached into her purse again and pulled out a small key. "What's that?" he asked. "Apartment key," she said. "I'm not coming back." His throat tightened. "So you're done." She looked at him for a long moment. "I forgave you, Jake. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." A tear rolled down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "I don't know how to live without you." "You'll learn," she said gently. He looked away, the pain in his chest expanding. "Did she ever try to contact you?" She nodded. "She sent a letter. I burned it. She said she loved me." Sarah let out a dry, sad laugh. "She probably did. But love born from betrayal is cursed. You'll carry that scar forever. So will she. So will I." They sat quietly again, the weight between them too heavy to lift. When she stood up, he followed. "I wish I had been enough," he said. She turned to him. "You were. I just didn't know I was sharing." With that, she walked away. He stood there, watching until she turned the corner and disappeared from sight. The drive home was long and heavy. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He just drove with the windows down, letting the Colorado wind slap his face like penance. Back at the apartment, he stared at the envelope again. He opened it slowly and saw the signed document. Clean, final. Her signature stared back at him, beautiful and cold. He stared at the blank line meant for him, pen trembling in his hand. He signed. The next morning, he began packing. Every room held memories, and he couldn't stay there any longer. He boxed up Sarah's remaining things with care, wrapped their framed wedding photo from Vail in newspaper, and dropped it in the dumpster. A week later, he left the apartment for good. He moved into a small place in Aurora. Nothing fancy, just space to breathe. Life moved on. He kept walking, The past would always walk behind him, whispering, reminding. But he had learned something vital in all the silence, shame, and heartbreak. Some mistakes can't be undone, but they can be survived. And that somehow was enough to keep moving forward. If you're new here or haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video. And just like this story, I have another exciting story for you. Just click on the video on your screen. I'll be waiting for you.